finding your way back to mountain pose. Just taking a moment, noticing the bottoms of the feet planted on your mat. If you look down and see the angle of your toes, so check out the second and third toes and point them straight ahead towards the front of your mat. You'll notice the bones behind them create parallel lines. This sets up the alignment of our feet, especially the bones and the joints of the feet, to be most balanced. As we start with our foundation, we'll just take a moment and observe the rest of the body. From the feet, notice next your ankles, and then your lower legs, your shins, calves. Notice the knee joints. Are the knees tight or locked out? And if they are, can you allow them to soften just a little bit, letting again energy flow, letting there be an opportunity to let go of tension rather than hold on to it. Notice that influence into the thighs that softening the knees might create for you. So the quads in the front, the hamstrings in the back. Feel your pelvis, and using your hands, you can wrap your hands around the sides of our pelvic bones here, finding and imagining the pelvic bones shaped like a bowl. As you notice your bowl, you might observe that the bowl is tending to tip forward a little bit or backwards. We're just becoming aware of our center here, the pelvis representing the anatomical center of the body. And if you can, closing your eyes, paint a dot at the bottom of the bowl. Again, this dot just representing the foundation of our body. Next, we'll notice the center of the rib cage again. So placing your right hand on the front ribs just below your sternum, the left hand on the back of the rib cage just below the shoulder blades. And again, closing the eyes, imagining a dot in the center between your hands. As you press your ribs lightly back towards the back hand and then into your front hand, you'll feel that that changes the position of your lower spine, your pelvis, as well as how the weight is placed in the feet. So oftentimes the relationship between our ribs and our pelvis might be a little bit out of alignment, and in our standing poses, as we bring balance to that alignment, it'll help us to feel more centered, so energy can again flow with ease. Now, a good way to test or sense if you're in the appropriate position is by noticing that that weight in the feet is equal, so equal placement of weight to the heels and the ball mounds of the feet. And this should allow also your pelvis to find a more upright position as opposed to being tucked too far back or too far forward. You can see there that even just the subtle adjustments to the pelvis have a big effect sometimes on the energy of our body. So we've got the center of the ribs now stacked over the center of the pelvis. See those two dots just lined up vertically. The third space at the back of the roof of the mouth, you can allow your arms to relax and just place the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth. Notice the back of the soft palate. The back of the roof of the mouth. Again, as you move your head gently forward and backwards, notice the upper spine. Notice your neck, your shoulders, your upper ribs. And as you just find the center of the skull stacking over the center of the rib cage, you bring the body into a more aligned position. Adjust your shoulders, a couple of rolls of the shoulders up, back and down. And you can think of the tops of the shoulders now just balancing themselves in position on either side of that center line, from the top of the spine down to the base of the pelvis. And then finally, the right hand finds the crown of the head. So we're going to push the top of the head up against the hand. Try to again notice if your work of that action comes from anywhere else, like the knees or the lower back. I'm just demonstrating some of those actions that happen or tend to be woken up when we focus on lifting or lengthening our posture. So just stay soft in the legs. Think of the centers being stacked, and you're just guiding a gentle bit of energy up against your hand with the top of your head. Should be no strain, no effort with that. And then you can either relax your arms down by your sides, or for a little bit more of an active hold here, stretch the arms up overhead, interlace your fingers, pointing index fingers up, and then lift the shoulders, reach through the upper spine, through the crown, and find balance here. Just a couple of breaths. Again, you might notice the weight is more in the toes. If that's the case, try drawing your ribs or your hips back a little bit until you feel that evenness of weight. We'll release the arms out to the sides, letting your arms dangle. Tuck the chin towards the collarbones, and then let your upper spine just start to bend forward. Then the mid-spine folds, the lower spine comes into this forward bend position finally. And you can stay here for a moment. Notice the weight in your feet. You should again move your pelvis a little bit as a way to just change where your center of gravity is, and you can notice that influences the pressure through the feet. Try to create again an equal sense of weight through the heels and the ball mounds. And then tuck the tailbone down. As you push into the floor at the feet, you're rising up. Pelvis becomes upright, then the ribs stack over the pelvis, the skull stacks over the ribs, and the shoulders fall into alignment here. We'll go ahead, and if you have a yoga block or prop, go ahead and find that prop. Place it in the middle width between the inner thighs. If you don't have a prop today, you don't need it necessarily. You can bring the feet and the legs together. We still want a little bit of space between the heels so we keep that alignment of the feet, or you can keep your feet hip distance and just imagine a light energy between the inner thighs. So I'm going to use my block here. And what we want to do next is just start to shift our center forward. So this gives us a feeling of an upward lift of energy. And what I'm going to do is I'm slowly moving the bowl of the pelvis towards the front of the mat. Now when I feel the weight comes out of the heels, meaning most of my energy is now pushing down through the fronts of the feet, I'm going to squeeze towards the midline with my legs, begin to pull up from the pelvic floor and gently reach up through the crown of the head, finally allowing my heels to lift or float any amount. And you can see there just a little wiggle and wobble for me, so I can notice that my energy isn't fully centered in those pathways just yet. So I'm going to do a few rounds practicing. You can follow along when you're ready. Soften the knees to start. Think of the bottom of your bowl pointing straight down, that vertical line in the center of the body, and then you're moving the line forward. When you feel the weight comes out of the heels, just start to pick or lift the heels up. And rather than coming from the calves, really try to emphasize that your focus is in the center. So around the pelvic bowl area, as you squeeze your block, you'll feel the pelvic muscles tighten, and you can think of floating or lifting your bowl away from the floor, which will naturally lift the heels. We always want to give the energy a direction to flow, so you can push down through the feet or reach up through the top of your head, or a combination of both. When you get really good, you can stretch the arms up. You're still maintaining a nice neutral balance in the body, which allows you to find that balancing point just on the ball mats of the feet. You get really steady, you can try with the eyes closed, which forces an even deeper awareness of the connections in our center, because we don't have our visual field helping us maintain equilibrium. So it's a little more challenging there. Okay, and then as your heels come down, just bring the arms out to the sides. We'll bend our elbows here, just lightly squeezing the shoulder blades, lifting and lowering your shoulders for a moment. As we loosen up the shoulder girdle, we can become aware of those subtle adjustments that you can take in the next pose. Interlacing the hands behind you, taking your chest expansion, so with either the wrists relaxed, palms separate, or the palms coming towards one another, you can begin, again, from the center, squeezing your imaginary block or finding your prop squeezed between the inner thighs, lifting from the base of the pelvis, feeling that slight lift through the ribs, extending through the top of the spine and the top of the head, and allowing the arms to come up from there. You might find subtle adjustments again by lifting the shoulders just a tiny bit, lifting the center of the collarbone space, open up the front of the chest. Continue to breathe steadily, allowing that breath to move energy through those spaces that you're starting to feel warm up or wake up in this pose. You can relax the arms, shake it out, and then gently melt forward. If you have the block between the inner thighs, go ahead and take it out for a moment, plant it underneath your hands. You'll bend one knee at a time. You might be flexible enough that you don't need the block to, so feel free to bring the hands to the floor. Just as you're moving through this, try to keep an even feeling of pressure through the feet as well here. This gives us a nice sense of balance through our movements. Okay, if you have your prop, bring it with you as you come back up for one more round. If you don't have it, just go ahead and skip that today. Squeezing the block. Again, soften the knees, finding a neutral alignment of my body as best I can. I'm going to start with that lift of the heels, just to again encourage a feeling of connection in my center. It's almost like an upward flow of energy. Think of like a fountain, right? That energy shooting up towards the crown of the head. You can feel where other muscle spaces might be trying to kind of grip or hoard the energy, right? My hips like to tip forward, my hip flexors like to turn on. That's just an example in my body. See what you notice with that. Come back down. Now, as you maintain the squeeze of your inner legs and the lift of the pelvic floor, start to lower the pelvis towards the floor, just gently back towards the space behind your heels. So essentially, my hips reaching back will allow me to keep the weight grounded in those heels as I extend my body gently forward over the thighs here. So our chair pose, Utkatasana. Arms reaching forward. You can send the arms up without arching your back, lifting through the center of the ribs, reaching through the upper spine. This again will help to bring a nice connection throughout the body. Slight tuck of the pelvis. Again, we're grounding through the root and then lifting our center away from the floor, which lets the legs straighten. Option to lift the heels here. And And then bring the heels back down if they're lifted, sink your hips back into the chair pose. And again, exhale, bring it up. See how much of the movement you can feel that really strong sense of connection through the inner thighs, through the lower core, especially the muscles in the bottom of your bowl. Those are essentially the muscles that hold everything together. And then on this last round, find your chair pose, move your center forward again, see if you can feel the heels just floating up away from the floor. Those of you that want to explore going deeper, let your pelvis, the sitting bones, sink towards the mat. If you do have your prop, you might move it out of the way in case it's in your way of start to move it all. Okay? And then I'm going to slowly lift my bowl back up. Maybe keeping the heels lifted all the way up, and then going all the way back down. If that is an issue for the knees, just return your heels to the mat, right? Find your low chair pose, come up and back down a couple more times. From your low chair, keeping the torso as vertical as you can, feeling that really centered connection through hips, legs, and core. If your heels are lifted, push your butt back to ground the heels and then fold over the legs. Again, you can pedal out the legs a little bit here. And we'll gently rise up to our mountain pose again.